Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Zombie Train. I am your host, Ellis, otherwise known as Train Man, and this week we have a question of questions. Actually, not quite. Not as we've had questions of questions in the past, but certainly a big one. And for this one, I will have to be going to the books again. And as an astute listener pointed out, going to the books may just as well be going to Google, but unfortunately, we don't have that kind of network anymore. If only we had that kind of technological access, during the war, especially after the war. Before the war, I did what I could in terms of creating documents and lists and plans and things like that with all the information that I could get my hands on, with everything, with the most modern, basically, that we've known of the internet. And, it was right of me to do so, but it was wrong of me to store them in a place where I could lose them. And I didn't keep multiple copies, and we did end up losing some things because, as far-sighted as I may have been considered, for creating a zombie plan and doing all the work that went into it, nobody really expects to have to carry those sorts of things out. And, yeah. And, so we were left with some other documentation. There was documentation that we created during the course of the Zombie Train, and the Zombie Train Incorporated. One of the first documents of these, which was piggybacking off of something that I had made beforehand, was a list of every single steam locomotive we could know. Like, every single one that we knew about. We asked around, we, looked things up when we could. We went through lists that other people had or had made, this sort of thing. It was a big deal to put all of that together and to make it into something that made sense. And the fact of the matter is, the thing of it is, it didn't really make sense. We went into it, and we compiled this list, and we didn't really know what to compile it by. The first thought was, do it by number. Do it by road number. And then we realized that doesn't make any sense, because road numbers are completely arbitrary. And then we said, okay, do it by location. And so that's sort of what it became, but we had to go by state. And that really isn't specific enough. Either way, it did help. But yeah, it wasn't really specific. It wasn't really that helpful. But the reason I'm bringing up the giant list is because A, it's one of the oldest documents that survives through the entire Zombie Train Incorporated. And it didn't get edited, which is kind of unusual. We did make new lists, but this is the oldest one to go back to, and this is the one now that I really have my hands on still because it feels like an antique. The other ones they were sort of, what's the word? They were sort of bureaucratic shortcuts, or, sort of notes that we took effectively, and they didn't fill every duty. They fulfilled some duties better than this table that I'm looking at here, but they were specialized. They were done a certain way to do a certain thing, like, these are the locomotives that we can get in this area, this is their status, yada yada yada. I don't have any of those. They're lost to time. They're probably in a filing cabinet somewhere. But we do have this one. And again, the reason I bring this up is because we had a question by Midwestern 261, which is, what were all of the Pensy engine used for the ZT, and when and where were they used? So, here's the thing about the Pensy engines, is the Pennsylvania Railroad was very systematic in their scrapping. They saved one of every class that they deemed important, and that was it. There were a couple others that escaped the torch, but otherwise not so. Which means that in this long list, which is how many entries? Down the bottom, this is entry number 1254. This is the last one. And I don't think all of these were valid engines, because we were just writing down as many things as we could. We did have to weed out ones that weren't standard gauge, too. That was interesting to do. And some that we didn't know until we got there and went, oh, we're idiots. You know, you roll up on a place where you expected to have a standard gauge steam engine and it's got a 15-inch gauge steam engine. You go, this is worthless. Why did we come here? But you've got, you know, basically every locomotive listed here. And then at the bottom, I wrote down a bunch of things, a bunch of notes where I tallied up all the different kinds of engine and sort of what condition they were in. This was before the tier system. I just wrote down 3 things, either restorable, operational, which means that they were operational at the time of the Great Panic, or unserviceable. Unserviceable engines were ones that we'd heard about, but that were, you know, dropped in a river or something, that were otherwise unrecoverable. Like B&M's 3666 is written here as unrecoverable. It's written on its own line in the spreadsheet as sunk. So, yeah, it's sunk. But for Pennsylvania Railroad, I can't really go through all of these. There's a huge thing here, but so I'm going to go over to Pennsylvania because that's where most of them were. Pennsylvania. Okay, that's Steamtown. That's a long list. Where is... It's right next to... Oh, there it is. Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. So, this one is PRR. 060, let's see, the 240 is PRR. I don't remember that one. It's numbered 1. I don't remember that one. But I assume we used it. The 280, another 280, 3 280s, the Mikado. So there's H3 and H10 and H6. We used all of those. The Mikado, the L1, we ended up sending that out and getting it back and using it as a base for many more things. 1223, 7002, those are both used, as well as 760, that's the Atlantic, and the 460, and 3750, and 6755, which is a, those are a Pacific and a mountain type, respectively, I think. And then that was everything out of there. They did, you know, they had plenty of Pennsylvania Railroad engines there. That was most of the Pennsylvania Railroad engines. But what are the ones that I've missed? Because we did use all of those. I don't think there were any Pennsy engines where we went, no, we're not touching that. There's one that was marked down as PRR, but it's a USRA. Mike, SLSF. Do I remember this one? This was 4018. It's in Alabama. It was on display. It was on display. I don't remember seeing it, but it must have been one of the ones that got picked up by other people. Not other people like other groups. I mean other people in the Zombie Train Incorporated. It's, you know, there were a lot of these engines. Most of the Pennsy engines didn't go very far. The Mikado, like I said, ended up being recalled, and I'm not really sure it ran that much because we were using it as like a, oh, this is how they're supposed to go together. And the other ones, I know the K4s went pretty far. Sometimes you'd see them together, and we tried to get them together whenever possible, because K4s for Pacifics, admittedly, are kind of weak. And then the other smaller engines, they just sort of scattered. There was a general idea at first to keep them all together because of the interchangeable parts thing, but we realized when we wanted to keep all of the engines running, there was really no point, because the interchangeable parts things really only helps when you're taking parts off of one engine and fitting them to another one, unless something really breaks and you can't tell what it's supposed to look like, in which case we would get the other one, because that happened a couple of times. These were engines where it was like, look, there are so many engines right here, and they're in great condition, put them all into service. That was a mistake. There were some issues with the Pennsylvania Railroad engines, including a lot of broken things. And thankfully nobody killed, but some people injured, scalded a little bit. Just due to us being overzealous with these locomotives, because they were some of the first ones that we put into service that were not in service previously. Especially with 1223 and 7002 being, you know, having a long excursion career and then pulling them, them going into retirement, and then us pulling them out and going, yeah, well, we're going to use you guys now, sort of ignoring the fact that they got put away because they were really at the end of their service lives, and they needed a lot of work, going, oh, these are the best looking ones here, and we know these ran before, so go run. Yeah. The beginning was kind of fraught with mistakes. There's another one that's listed as PRR. It's another one. Oh, is that the John Bull? Yeah, it is. That's one of the engines that we did not touch. The replica we did. But the original one we did not. We left that in the Smithsonian. Because of all the things, not really a lot to gain from running that engine, and a lot to lose. I mean, all of these were pieces of history, but the John Bull in particular, it's funny because on the spreadsheet it's listed as operational. It sits there. We didn't even think about it. We didn't, it was never a serious consideration. Let's fire up John Bull, the original one. It was floated as an idea for, like, a celebration, but no. Then there's another 060. Yeah, this one was the one down in Delaware. We used that. Then there was another one. Yeah, that's the 010. We used that. That isn't even really PRR. That was formerly something else. And then there's the I-1. That's right. That's the big engine that escaped us. I forgot where the I-1 was when we went to go get all the Pennsy engines, and we were sort of going down the checklist of all the major classes that I knew that they had saved, and the video's going to go out in a second, don't mind that. And I realized we're missing one. Where is it? And I didn't know where it was. We found out later, oh, it's in New York. We got to go to New York for it. And we went up there and we restored it and we ran the hell out of it because that engine is stupid powerful. It is a giant decapod, and you don't get how giant it is until you sit it next to another, like a normal sized decapod. And at one point we had 90 from Strasbourg and the I-1 side by side, and you can tell the I-1 is huge. It's fat, and it presented some problems with running on branch lines. I don't know how the PRR put that thing on branch lines back in the day, but they must have been some pretty hefty, like coal mine branches. Let me see if there are any other ones that I can cover real quickly because we're about to run out of time. That is something else. This is something else. Yeah, I can't see the whole... The page is screwed up here. And then, yeah, 1361, of course. That was the other one. We went to get that one, like, immediately. Anyway, Trainman out.